Hi, welcome to another TPF podcast. My name is Kris Simonich, and my partner here is Andrea Floyd. And on this podcast, we try to deconstruct and parse out some of the best practices from our industry's top performers. Today, we have 3Natives founder Anthony Bambino with us. Anthony, great to have you here.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great. We're glad to have you on. And so, Anthony, let's kind of start out in the beginning. Give us sort of how did you create 3Natives? How did you come up with this concept? What's the origin story there?
So, 12 years ago, I had a sales job where the West Coast of the United States was the bulk of my territory. My best friend went to the University of San Diego, and while he was there, he worked at this small little coffee shop that served acai bowls. And just going back and forth from being out there with work, always found myself at his place of business, and I'm just watching people. No one's really coming in for coffee, but everybody was coming in for these acai bowls. And just over and over and watching it and just really paying attention to the demographic of clientele, I was like, Southern California and South Florida are very, very similar. Obviously, they have mountains and they have better waves, but besides that, it's very, very like-minded people when it comes to health and wellness. Everybody's active. Everybody wants to be, seen doing something. So I told my dad, I said, look, I think, we could have a successful business selling these acai bowls. And of course, he said, you're out of your mind. And he's like, but if you want to test this out, you need to go around and do a bunch of farmers markets and these little fairs and see if there is a customer base for it. And which we did for the first year. And it was funny. We had the most rinky dink setup at every farmers market and every fair that we did. But we always sold out and we always had a line of people. They had no idea what they were eating, but they just kept coming back and bringing friends with them. So that's what really, to us, proved that, hey, people in Florida do care about eating healthy. Because at the time in Florida, it was just full of these really, really greasy spoon diners and like old cheesy Italian restaurants. And now Florida, 11 years from there, it's changed. There's a lot of these small juice bars that have popped up and down the coast of Florida.
That's great. I think, one of the things you're hitting on is you tried it, you tested it, you proved that it worked. And that's really, we always tell clients that's a lot of what you're getting with franchises is that they started out and they worked out all the kinks and they built it out to figure out, okay, what works? What do people want? Before you started really sort of making it into these stores, these locations, and then ultimately franchising. So I think that's a really great story.
Thank you.
So, what would you say, Anthony, to those folks that have heard the term acai bowls but have never had one? How do you describe it? Why are they so delicious? Why are they catching fire coast to coast?
So people that are in the acai business will hate me when I say this, but for someone who's never had it, I always say it's like purple ice cream because it is very refreshing and it is a cold sorbet type product. It's non-dairy, so it's not ice cream whatsoever, but it'd be the easiest way to explain it. And it has that craveable factor that ice cream has. It's very light. With the fruit and the granola and the honey on top of it. It's obviously very sweet, and it's refreshing. So the bulk of my stores are in Florida. Florida is extremely hot and humid, especially in the summertime. And people legitly crave these when they're done going for a run or yoga or Pilates. It's just a nice way to cool off and refresh. It's a great compliment to a smoothie, right? There's always been smoothies. The smoothie market has been around for a very long time, and the acai bowl, it's the same thing. It's a little more substance, and I think it's more appealing than having a smoothie.
Okay. So, take us back to the origin story. So, we got you at the farmer's market. It's working out, you're selling out, but there's a lot more ground to cover going from there to having stores to then franchising. Tell us about that.
So when we decided, luckily, and I'll say this with air quotes, luckily the economy wasn't that good, so it was an easy barrier to entry. We we got a realtor. She took us to the only spot that we could afford. Luckily for us, it was in our hometown, which we knew, and it was the only plaza that we really wanted to be in. So I am a firm believer, like everything does happen for a reason. It was a former barber shop. We were going to turn this barber shop into a juice bar. And at first, it was actually going to be a coffee shop because that's what my friend worked at in California. So the actual first name was 3Natives Acai and Coffee. Um, Once we got it open, which took forever because nobody knew about pulling permits, nobody knew about the Department of Business. There's just all these things that all we knew was that we wanted to sell acai bowls and coffee to customers. Once
Hmm.
we finally got it open, I think we had our coffee machine for 2 weeks when we realized we're really unsuccessful at serving coffee, but we were really, really good at serving smoothies and acai bowls. And that's really where we focused our energy and put everything that we did was behind how do we get better at making these bowls faster and quicker so that we can get through the lines, especially at lunchtime, because we'd be bottlenecked at lunchtime. And what can we do to just make sure we get more people coming in the door and people are continuing to leave happy every day? And it took time. It wasn't. It definitely wasn't an overnight fix. It took a lot of trial and error. And when we first opened, we never had distributors. We didn't even know what a distributor was. Costco was our distributor. Walmart, Publix, which is a local grocery store chain. So once you start figuring out, hey, we have distribution, and distribution can support you, and you're not running around all day with a chicken with your head cut off, trying to get granola, trying to get spoons, trying to get plastic bowl. The bowls would change because all of a sudden Costco doesn't have this bowl, but they have the like. It was very very tough at first, but the main core of 3Natives never changed, and luckily customers saw that we were just young guys trying our best to have a business, and the little things that would change here and there, they were all right with it as long as the acai bowl stayed the same.
But you're not just acai bowls and smoothies. You've really sort of expanded, and
Yes.
is that just kind of over time trying out things, and what's the thought behind expanding your menu?
So there was in this plaza, there was always a deli in there, and we would sit there and watch, especially on the weekends. A car would pull up, and the girl would come into 3Natives, and her boyfriend or husband would walk down to the deli. So I started asking when they would come back to the car. I'm like, why do you guys go down to the deli? Why don't you come into 3Natives? And the response over and over again was, you serve bird food. And so I was like, looking at him, we're sitting there and we're like, well, we're getting all the women. What can we do to make this where guys want to come and eat? And I was talking to a bunch of friends and other people in the restaurant world, and they're like, you have to have some type of protein. You have to have some type of substance if you want to get men to come in here and have lunch. So we went out and we got a raw vegan chef, and we knew we weren't going to go raw vegan. It wasn't what we wanted to do, but we wanted his ideas. And then he gave us a list of ideas and all these recipes. And then we worked with my team, and I said, all right, now we got to figure out how to take this and make it work for the mainstream audience. And it took time. It probably took 6 to 8 months. There was a lot of trial and error, but now our food menu is what continues to grow year after year after year. And I do feel, and especially in this space, this is what separates us from all of our competitors. We've been doing food for 6 years now. We have just as much as we have acai bowls and smoothies dialed in, we have our food component dialed in. And that's what we're really really proud of. And our food, it's very simplistic. It's tuna salad, chicken breast. It's stuff that you make every single day, but we do it just how you would eat at home. It's very clean, it's fresh, it's fast, and it's easy.
Yeah. One of the things we like about 3Natives is that, food can be a lot speaking from a franchising standpoint, right? Um, but because of your menu being healthy, it also makes the actual operations of your franchise a little bit more simple, and I think lighter, overhead wise, the things. Can you talk about that? How what you're doing is a little bit different than when people think of food and franchise.
Yeah, and I we get complimented a lot. People are like, "Man, this is such a great concept. How did you get rid of having fryers?" And it's not like there was this big plan of coming out of, we're not going to have fryers, we're not going to do this. It was just all how we started. And once you're already had we when we knew our first store, this is how big it is, this is the space we had to make sure that our food menu could fit into that spacing. So we weren't able to go out and have this expansive menu. We had to keep it very, very simple, and it had to be a lot of the same ingredients that we already had being reused and retooled over and over again. And that was probably one of the hardest things that we did, because with our employees, they've been making smoothies and bowls over and over again. Now we're having them make food, and we wanted to keep that same like Henry Ford assembly line going on with the food production. Our biggest thing at 3 Natives is if you're waiting longer than 2 minutes for food, there's an issue, and it's very, very hard to do if you don't have everything planned out and every ingredient in the same spot over and over again. If you do, which it's taken us time to dial in, you can make this stuff very, very quick and get it out its way to the consumer. Because as you guys know, not just in food, just in any aspect of life, people have no patience anymore. So that was the big, big driving force behind that.
But I think you're in an area too that is really trending. The healthy food space is probably one of the fastest growing areas, and you see a lot of people gravitating away from that. Like you mentioned, the guys used to be down at the deli. Now you're offering some sort of protein, but it's a healthier protein, so they're coming your way. How are you seeing this trend, and how are you going to continue to capitalize on that?
I think what really happened with 3 Natives was once COVID happened and you realized the people that were getting very, very sick with COVID were people that already had pre-existing health conditions. And a lot of that was being overweight. And I think once COVID, for good or bad, whatever it was, when people started realizing, hey, what I'm putting into my body is really affecting how I feel, my mood, my energy levels. And we got lucky. We were always a health food place. So people that before would never step foot into 3 Natives, all of a sudden they're coming in and they're getting a green juice, or they're having a salad or a wrap or a smoothie. What they'd say, I would never do this before in my life. Um, the food industry is really, really tough right now. I mean, there's so many different statistics right now that depression's at an all-time high, obesity's at an all-time high. I'm not going to name any brands, but a lot of our competitors in the smoothie world that people think they're getting a healthy smoothie, it's a cup full of sugar. And at 3 Natives, we do not add sugar to anything. We don't use frozen fruit. Everything is fresh. Is it a little harder to do? Yes, but it is the right thing to do 100%. So I think what allows us to grow, especially out of Florida into different markets, is consumers are really fed up of everybody's tired. Everyone's got, you have a busy schedule. Life is busy. They want to be able to eat something that they feel good about. And there's still not that many options out there in the quick service space.
Yeah. So let's turn our perspective a little bit from a franchising standpoint. Who are you looking for to be a franchise owner in your system, or what kind of person's probably going to gravitate to a 3 Natives and really knock it out of the park for you?
So we want someone who's 100% fully committed. Um, we want someone who's an owner operator. And the reason being, what we've learned in years of 3 Natives, yet I have 6 stores. I was in my restaurants for the first 8 years. This is 2 years since I've started that I now have an office job. We started franchising with me being behind a counter. It was very, very tough. But to be successful, I feel in any business, franchise or not, you have to be an owner operator. And I've learned in the restaurant business, just because it is a pennies market, if you keep an eye on the pennies, those dollars do add up. But if you don't, they go out the back door very, very quickly. So for us, we really want somebody who wants to be their own boss. We also want somebody who's realistic, and this is something that we've learned in our years of franchising. No matter what franchise you do, you're not going to be rich having one. We have to set the expectations. You will make a good, comfortable living. You will be your own boss. You won't be a slave to your business. But you're not buying a 55-foot yacht and a private jet having one franchise. So that was one thing that we realized we really got to spell out beforehand, that there's steps to everything. And the guys that have yachts and private jets, they have hundreds of franchises. So we're looking for somebody who's really energetic. Most of our franchisees are younger. They've come in, they have a lot of passion. They already eat healthy, so it's a very easy transition for them. And They just want to bring something new to their community that they can stand behind and they can be proud. And that's what we're looking for with a franchisee.
That's great. So, Anthony, tell me, what does the day-to-day look like of the franchisee? They come in, and it doesn't sound like they have to be in the food industry to begin with. They just have to have that passion to build it out. They could be in the
Believe
food
it or
industry. You
not,
weren't. Yeah.
no, I was not. And believe it or not, we only have one franchisee with a food background. Believe it, a lot of them have a finance background. I don't know what, but yeah,
You
we
want to
only
get out
have
of the
one.
money.
Absolutely, we only have one franchisee with a food background.
So what does their day-to-day look like? This finance guy comes in and he's used to being in a suit and tie. Tell me about that
So
transition. What does it look like?
I think the first month is them just taking a deep breath, realizing that they can do this. I always tell everybody your first 6 months is very, very tough because do we have systems in place and procedures? 100%. But it takes repetition for our systems and our procedures to make sense to you and your staff. And you have to enforce them. You have to hold people accountable. And once those systems and those procedures, they're running seamlessly, it is a very, very simplistic business. We run our, and again, we've been open for 11 years. My corporate stores, they run with 2 people opening and 2 people closing with an overlap at lunchtime. It's simplistic. So most of the franchisees, when they're first coming into work, they are still working in their business. They're still an operator, so they're helping with the prep work. Lunchtime is our biggest time. We do open at 8 a.m. We do have a small coffee component, but we're definitely a lunch crowd. So you're spending the morning prepping, getting ready for lunchtime. And then from 11:30 to 2 o'clock, you're really all hands on deck serving customers. And we really want our franchise owners to be on the register because I'm a firm believer that people buy from who they like. And if you're on the register and you're having that same 30-second conversation and you know what you're ordering or what the customer's ordering and the simple greetings of hello, how are you? And, goodbye when they're out. Thank you. Come again. It's our pleasure to serve you. I think that stuff goes a long way, especially nowadays when there are so many choices for food. So we really want our owners to be on the forefront, especially at lunchtime, so they can separate themselves from the competition. So you do have that mom and pop feel, even though it is a franchise.
Okay. I want to switch it up now, Anthony. I want to take you away from 3Natives specifically and just kind of draw on your business, entrepreneurial, and franchise experience. So we're gonna go into what we call a rapid fire here with 2
Sure.
questions. So again, not specific to 3Natives, but if you were to talk to somebody who's out there seriously considering buying a franchise, going into business for themselves for the first time, they're researching different franchise opportunities. What's one piece of advice you'd give them?
Really make sure you connect with the franchisor because they're the ones they're making the decisions. I won't say of your livelihood, but of a good chunk of your livelihood. And if you don't have the same values as that franchisor, it's never going to work out.
Yeah. So it's more than the data and the financials and what's in the FDD. It's got to be that
Yeah,
personal
you got,
component.
and again, for other franchisors that are listening, there's a lot of people that sell a bunch of franchises, but if you don't align with your franchisees, there's always going to be friction. We tell people this is a marriage, and it's a 10-year marriage. Hopefully, you renew, and it's a 20-year marriage, and you renew again, it's a 30-year marriage. But it's a 10-year marriage, and we want to make sure that the people that we're in business with are the people we care about. So on both sides, the franchisee and the franchisor have to be in full alignment. Um, every franchise has a huge franchise disclosure document that tons of lawyers have written over and over again, right? And that's when things go bad, that's what everybody goes back to. But if you and the franchisor or the franchisee are all on the same page, you can get through any issues because, as you know, in a marriage, issues arise, and it's how you guys handle them and how you prevail. So that's my big advice: is just make sure that you and the franchisor share the same vision.
Okay. Good advice. So, second question is we're talking to somebody who's bought a franchise, maybe in the food business, maybe something totally different. But you've been there that first year, they're in it, right? What's your advice to them?
Don't give up. It gets way easier. Don't give up. The first year is tough. Your first 6 months, you question everything. Why did I do this? I'm sure the finance guys listen to me. They're like, why did I leave crunching numbers? But it gets so much easier. And um, just because of the world we live in, everybody expects things to happen just like this. It takes time to build a business, franchise, or doing something on your own. In the food business, we tell our franchisees, you know, we're not Starbucks, we're not McDonald's yet. Like, we just don't have a yellow arch that we put on the side of the road, and now 1,000 cars show up every day. I'm like, it takes time. There's a lot of work that's done marketing wise to get people to break their routine to come and try you. So that's, I think everybody at first, they turn their open sign on and they're supposed to have a line out the door, and that's just not realistic. So just not giving up and staying focused to your goal.
That's great. Good advice. Really good
Thank
advice.
you.
Anthony, thank you for being here. I think, we like having people on in the food space because it's traditionally a space that's really complex, really challenging. And I think you bringing in this healthier mix, which people are looking for with all the obesity in this country, all the diabetes, all these different medical conditions, people are looking for that. And I think coming at it as simpler, fresh ingredients, and really continuing to innovate and find ways to have something for everybody out there. I think that's really important, that fast casual space. And so we really appreciate seeing kind of your process, hearing your history here and what you're going to build. I think it's a really great thing. So for those of you that are thinking about franchising, remember that there's no one size fits all to franchising, but there's a perfect franchise out there for you. To explore your options, please visit theperfectfranchise.com by clicking on Let's Talk to schedule a call with one of the consultants on the Perfect Franchise team. We look forward to connecting with you again on the next episode. Until then, take care.